Donald Trump clashing with reporters at the National Association of Black Journalists conference. Trump's invitation didn't come without backlash from some attendees, with the co-chair of the event resigning over the organization's decision to host him. And it was tense on stage from the moment Trump sat down.
Why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said, you can't do it with Zoom. And then you were half an hour late. Just so we understand, I have too much respect for you to be late. I have been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln.
Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
She was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that she is
somebody should look into that too when you continue in a very hostile, nasty tone?
It's a direct question, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, as some Republicans
really don't
have said?
know. I mean, I really don't know. Could be. There are some.
We have you for a limited time, sir. I'd love to move on to different topics.
Excuse you. You're the one that held me up at 35 minutes, just so you understand.
Kamala Harris was supposed to sit with the same panel, but had scheduling issues. The organization is hoping to have her join in September, but that didn't stop Trump from keeping her in the conversation.
Would you consider taking the cognitive test?
Mr. President,
I would love to
and
do
make
it
it public.
Well, I've already taken 2 of them, but I'll do it again.
Mr. President, how do you intend to...
I suggested, Harris, that let's take one. I said, Joe and I will go and take a cognitive test. Now, I'd do it with her, too. I would do it with her also. You know what? She failed her law exam. She didn't pass her law exam, so maybe she wouldn't pass the cognitive test.
And NABJ President Ken Lemon defending Trump's invitation before the event.
We invited both of them. We got a yes from one of them. We'd love to get a yes from Kamala as well. Us as journalists, people who go into and have very uncomfortable conversations for the sake of our members, this is an important time. I understand people are disappointed. I understand people are upset. It is our job also to offer that opportunity for those candidates to be here.
All right, Tyrus, I'll start with you. So 35 minutes late, he has to wait. He's told his opponent's going to be there. She's not there. There's a lot of objection to his even being there. The co-chair of the event apparently resigned or stepped down. Not a modicum of respect, he says, but how do you think he did?
Phenomenal. You know what? It's amazing. You can break it down to this. Since they like to group, since it's black voters and white voters and black this and black that and white this and white that. But when they had an event, he showed up. The Democrats didn't. So that should mean something. And they made him wait. They made him late. Did he leave? He would have been within his reason to be like, listen, I'm running for president of the United States. My time's valuable. He could have left. He didn't. He showed up. He was insulted. But here's the thing. I don't judge by, she was there for what that reporter, I'm not calling her a journalist, was there for one reason, to get talking sound bites for the Democrats, trying to get him to be mean and nasty. And literally within a minute, that's all they came out with talking about. But here's the thing. He called her out on it, but the crowd, they were expecting when she said that there'd be huge cheers and boos and all this stuff, and they were listening to what he had to say. And there was a few times that people yelled out like, yeah, so their narrative does not match the American people, no matter what color the crowd is. So that's what they should really be concerned with. But he went there. He knew how it was going to be. He answered questions. He was there. He was present. He showed up. And I thought his statements, it was great. And he didn't allow them to change the narrative or get him. He was exactly who he was supposed to be. And this was a big day for him.
And, you know, Dana, what about the fact that Trump has gone to places where Republican candidates have avoided? I mean, with South Bronx, Harlem, he went here, he waited.
Yeah, so I admire that, right? Because you can say a lot of things about the Trump fans ticket, if you like them, you don't like them, whatever. But they're working for it. They're working hard, and maybe the numbers are going to even out. But before Biden pulled out, one of the things we talked about regularly was just the numbers that were collapsing for Biden on the black vote, for example. So he won like 91% of the black vote in 2020. Trump had him getting about, I think that Biden was down like 73%. So the Republican Party doesn't need to win all of the black vote in order to win. They need to win more than they have before. And so addition is better than subtraction when it comes to politics. And again, they're working for it. Thing is, yes, you're probably going to get some hostile questions. Got to be ready for them. I worked for a boss who, if people were running late, he did not like it at all. And I don't blame him for pushing back on that. I do wonder how much video, right? Because not a lot of people watch things on television necessarily anymore. This will be sliced and diced into 100 different ways. But I think that the fact that he went there is important. She could have gone. She decided not to. She's at Sheila Jackson Lee's funeral today, so I get that. She's going to do another sorority event. But where are the journalists clamoring for her to do a press conference? There's no demand that Kamala Harris start answering a bunch of questions. I think that if she had gone, she would have gotten some pretty tough questions. And she probably would not have been able to answer them well.
One of the things, Harold, that Donald Trump has is more support among black voters than any other presidential candidate has had.
Republican,
yeah. Republican presidential candidate has had. Do you expect that's going to continue, or do you think Kamala Harris takes some of that from him?
Well, it's good to see you, and good to be back around the table. It's been a while. I'd say a couple of things. I agree largely with what Tyrus and Dana have said. I think, number one, I don't know how, as a journalist, you could be surprised that someone either accepts your invitation or declines your invitation. And just because one of the people accepts the invitation, and it might be a person whom you may personally have issues with or disagree with, but if you're part of an organization, the second part, you're a journalist organization. This is not a cooking organization. This is not an organization of electricians who are wonderful, valuable people, but these are journalists. It's like what Ken, I think, is Le Monde, what he said, we have an uncomfortable job of asking tough questions. So if you invite someone and you're a journalist, presumably to interview them, you shouldn't resign from the organization because the person who you were least inclined to agree with accepts, and the person you're inclined to agree with declines. Two, you can't control when you are being interviewed. I've never run for president. I ran for the Senate. And I went before groups of interviewers and journalists who I knew did not hold my positions and might be a little hostile to me. And I never opened up by saying, I wish you'd have said hello to me. I wish you'd have been nice to me. I thought he missed an opportunity to president. I disagree slightly with Tyrus in this regard. I would have just laid out all the things. I watched a lot of it. I would have just laid out all the things that you've done. The president believes that he's done to help black voters, help black Americans. I certainly would not have questioned whether or not Kamala Harris is black or she's in. I thought
no,
because,
that was a mistake.
I mean, look, I agree with you wholeheartedly about him going there, but Dana made the point also, and I agree. When you go before these things, the point of a political exercise is to gain more voters. And I'd be curious to know, to answer your question, Judge, if they actually believed, if his team, because they pulled him after about 35 minutes, and he was supposed to be there for an hour, if they believe he actually gained voters in this process or just excited the voters that he may already have. Now, he, in his last election, I think got, was it 8 or 9% of the African-American vote? He obviously is making an intentional effort, has made an intentional decision to go after black voters in a more aggressive way, meaning he wants more of them. And I'm not convinced that if I were him, I would have handled it like this. I thought there was probably a more effective way to handle it, but I give him credit for going, and I give him credit for sitting there. But I don't quite know if he achieved. If I was his advisor, I'd sit back and say, I don't know if we handled that one right.
What do you think, Jesse?
He stole the news cycle. Kamala's gotten great press over the last week and a half, and he just ripped it right back and put it right on his camp.
He did that.
This was a brave move. Everybody sees this, black, white, Hispanic. You're looking at a guy that talks straight, is real, and is courageous. He goes right into the lion's den and treats everybody the same. Doesn't matter if it's a black woman asking the question. Doesn't matter who it is. If you disrespect him, he's going to give it right back to you. It was a Megyn Kelly moment, and we love Megyn. If you have a tough question like that right out of the gate, he took it upper deck. And that's what everybody liked to see. Now, if you like Donald Trump and you watch that, you're ready now. I mean, this is a big moment for the campaign. This was a big confrontation in the summer, and he handled it classy. It could have been much more nasty. It was fine the way he handled it. If you're going to go in there and say, oh, you know, maybe I'm sorry. No. Where's that gotten us, Judge? We've been so politically correct the last couple of years. We're so afraid to offend illegal aliens. We don't even call them illegal aliens. We're afraid to offend Germany. We're afraid of offending China. What has that gotten us? We want a man that stands up for what he believes in. We're tired of these wishy-washy politicians. A lot of black men in the audience, a lot of white men, a lot of women look at that, and they may not feel totally comfortable, but they respect his position. Now, as far as who's Kamala, most of us wouldn't have gone in there and gone, who is Kamala Harris? Is she Indian? Well, she's Jamaican, too. Not something I would have done, but he went in there, and he peeled back the curtain. And a lot of times, I think early in her career, she identified as South Asian. That might have been effective in California. Now she is considered an African-American woman. You don't hear about that. She's not African-American technically because she has a Jamaican dad. I don't really distinguish about that stuff. Maybe other people do distinguish about that stuff. Barack Obama was mixed race. He identified as black. Okay, a lot of people that I know who are mixed race, sometimes they identify differently depending on the situation. And that's great. That's fine. What does this do to Donald Trump with the black community? I have no idea how this is going to play with the black community, but I do know they're going to be talking about Donald Trump and this moment for days and days and days.
So he's got the moment.
He's got the moment.
All right.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.